I am changing my mind about Gore-gruntaz. Let me explain why. First, thanks to all my patrons, Wybarian, Baron of Dice, wow. Okay, so we're comparing the original Gore-gruntaz, which have gone through a few different changes, and the Scourge of Ghyran Gore-gruntaz, which have some, they lose an attack, but they get charge +1 damage on both of their attack characteristics. So, like, on a first impressions, it feels like they're going to do more damage, but they don't. So first, let's just compare. All of their stat lines are the same, right? 9-inch move, 5 health, 3 up save, and 2 control. The original Gore-gruntaz cost 180 points. The Scourge of Ghyran cost 20 points more at 200. And the big difference between the two is their ability. So the original Gore-gruntaz have Gore-grunta Charge, which is just a 2-up D3 impact mortal on the charge. It's pretty basic, pretty boring, but it does 1 extra mortal damage if it's a cavalry. So it either does 3 or 4 mortal wounds on the charge, or it does 0. Right? So it's 3 plus 4 divided by 3 is the average. Oops. So 7 divided by 3. So it's 2.33 mortal wounds on average. So this is wrong. We'll just change this while we're here. Because the average is not 3. Because a third of the time it does nothing. Okay. And then versus the Scourge of Ghyran Gore-gruntaz, which have the passive Barge Through. When this unit moves, it can pass through models and infantry units that can pass through the combat ranges and can pass through the combat ranges of enemy infantry units, but it cannot end the move in combat unless the ability specified. Essentially, it essentially says that they have flying against infantry. They can fly over infantry. And so one of the ideas that I thought that I actually got from Aaron and just in conversations with others that I thought would be really strong is if these Gore-gruntaz were able to do something like charge over the heads of infantry units and get into squishy units in the back line. But the problem, I played a game with them yesterday, and one of the problems that I ran into is that you need really, really high movement numbers. I think I got a 13-inch charge, and I still wasn't able to actually go to fly over just because of the awkward, like, base sizes, right? Like, Gore-gruntaz take up a lot of space with their bases, and even if everything is turned sideways and everything, it's still kind of awkward to have them move over infantry bricks, because, you know, like, if you pull out an empty board and TTS and you do some numbers and you do some math, well, they're able to run over bricks of infantry. But as soon as, you know, you're actually hitting things in the real world where there's terrain and objectives and everything, then the math is a little bit different, right? So the idea was that they would be able to do things like this and charge over top and then power through and get their way into other units. But as soon as you're like, whoa, they can't be in a line, right? They can't be in a line because there's a piece of terrain or something. Let's just pull up a random map here. Let's see, place. Right? All of a sudden, it's like, well, they're actually not really able to do that because, you know, this unit pulled their infantry behind, and oops, and now it's the math is actually all different now, right? Because we're not able to fit everything in exactly as we would like it to, and so to be able to, like, power through and go to the other side, like, you can do it right here, right? But you can imagine that there's, like, a foot hero standing there, or, you know, anything, or we're not able to come up this close. Suddenly the reality of the math is quite a bit different. So, like, one unit here, and also don't forget, a good opponent is going to know that you can do this, so they're going to be setting it up so that you can't do this, right? So it makes it a little bit trickier, a little bit more difficult to actually use this ability. Reason number 2 is if we look at the actual damage that these units are putting out, the Gore-gruntaz are just going to deal more damage. The soggy Gore-gruntaz are going to deal less damage than the original Gore-gruntaz. And I don't mean per point. I mean flat out. After the charges with no other abilities, if they're both just stuck into combat, right? This is not including any charge bonuses. This is going to be the turn after you charge in. Because in this, like, Gore-gruntaz are not going to explode units like they used to be able to in 3rd edition. In 3rd edition, especially in the last season, you could give the pigs themselves 2 rend, 3 rend with Hoarfrost, and you were able to give +1 damage using the War Chanter's Kill a Beat to both the rider and the pig, and they would just explode units. They would just delete them, but they're not going to do that anymore. They're going to be stuck in combat for multiple rounds. And the reason that they deal more damage, by the way, is just because they have more attacks. The profiles for the Choppas and the Tusks between the two, it's like 3 attacks each versus 4 attacks each from the old Gruntaz, and then the rest of the profiles are almost similar, but they have 1 more rend. The new ones have 1 more rend on the Grunta Tusks. But throwing more dice is sort of counteracting this. It's not. It's like it's an extra 6 attacks for the unit. It's 2 more attacks per model. So throwing 6 more dice at your opponent is sort of negating the difference between the rend, right? Like the new Gruntaz are going to deal a little bit, slightly 0.12, nope, point less than that, 0.08 more damage against low saves, but the old Gruntaz are going to deal about 1.5 more damage against bad saves. So like I said, the average damage is going to be almost 3 for the old Gruntaz, but 2.4 for the new Gruntaz. So without any charge bonuses, without anything, the old Gruntaz are dealing more damage. This, of course, goes up against cavalry, because the old Gruntaz have this anti-cavalry +1 rend on one of their attacks. So then, you know, you're getting 12, 13 attacks with 2 rend against cavalry. So the damage actually goes up by quite a bit, by like 1 and a half, a little bit more than that. So, and then on the charge, it's like the old Gruntaz actually deal more damage on the charge, and the reason is because of this 2-up mortal ability, right? It's like, on average, they're going to deal, it's like, I guess that's how the, yeah, it's like, how does the math, how do you think this math works? Because it's like, they deal 0 or 2 or 3. So I guess the average is just 0 plus 2 plus 3, right? Divided by 3 possible options. So on average, they're dealing 1.67 damage on the charge, right? With their Grunta charge. These numbers all have 2 built in, so it's a little bit higher than it's supposed to be, but not by much, right? By like 0.33 extra damage. And then same thing versus, I mean, I wish I could just like, hold on one sec. There. These numbers are better. So against cavalry on the charge, against non-cavalry on the charge, they're dealing a 2-up D3 mortal wounds, which is an average of 1.67 mortal wounds per charge. So they're dealing like, 9.6 damage on the charge versus the new Gruntaz, which are 9.4 damage on the charge. So while the soggy Gruntaz are dealing more combat damage because they have fewer attacks, even though both of their attacks have charge +1 damage, the old Gruntaz are dealing more damage because they're dealing these mortal wounds. So not even per point, just in raw damage, the old Gruntaz deal more damage. And then obviously they're more cost effective because they're 20 points cheaper. Cool. And then against cavalry, the damage goes up even more. Against a 4-up save cavalry unit, the old Gruntaz are dealing almost 11 damage versus the 9.45, which the new soggy Gruntaz are doing. The new Gruntaz are dealing 4.72 damage per 100 points, while the old Gruntaz are dealing, versus cavalry on the charge, are dealing 6 damage per 100 point. That's a lot. That's a big number. Okay. And then, like I said, the following turn, after everybody's charged and everything is finished, the old gruntaz against infantry, like non-cavalry targets, are still dealing more damage. So it's more damage on the charge, and it's more damage following up. Okay, it's not all about damage, of course, but like I said, this barge through ability, like I played it last night, and it's just not going to work sometimes. And when it's not going to work, you're paying 20 more points for a unit that is just not dealing as much damage. Okay, and then now here's my final argument why I'm starting to change my mind, and I'm starting to think that the old gruntaz are better. The reason that I'm thinking that the old gruntaz are better is because I think there's going to be a lot of cavalry in this season. I think your opponents are going to be bringing a lot of things to try to get scouting force and to control objectives in our territory and all kinds of things like this. Would you agree? Are you anticipating lots of cavalry in this season? Let me know in the comments below. If that's true, then the gruntaz value goes up because they are an anti-cavalry piece. You almost kill 2 pigs charging into pigs. Almost. You roll a little bit above average, and you can take 2 pigs. Even if your opponent all-out defenses and you roll a little bit below average, you're still lifting a pig. To put that into perspective, that's a 5 wound, 3-up save cavalry unit. If they're like a 4-up save, 4 wound unit, you're lifting 2 easy. Right? Like, maybe anti-cavalry tech pieces matter this season. I don't know, we'll have to see. The thing with the new gruntaz, like I said, is that they can charge over, they can power through, right, over, but we'll see how important that is in Ironjawz compared to other things, right? Like, we can take Hack and Crew if we want some of that mobility, right? Because Hack and Crew, oops, H. Where is it? Oh, it's because it's Maw Grunta with Hack and Crew. Right. Yeah, I mean, it can't fly over things, but it can move. It moves pretty fast. It moves pretty far. So, 10-inch move. Pretty good. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm thinking. Right? It's like anti-cavalry deals more damage, and we're not really flying over infantry very effectively. Like, when it's good, it's going to be really good, but it's going to be hard for it to be good. I kind of just almost feel like running a couple of old Gore-gruntaz in a unit just to, like, punch opposing cavalry. It's like, oh, I'm gonna like move some infantry stuff up on the board and control the primary, and then I'm gonna sit back with these gruntaz who are scouts. If you're thinking about doing scouts, right? Like, they are scouts too. And then if your opponent's gonna send in their cavalry onto your side of the table, it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna punch you in the face then. So maybe you should rethink that. So I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below, or better yet, join the Discord. That's where the conversation's really happening. Like, subscribe. Wow.